The body does not understand moderation. The body knows you brought in carbohydrates, it breaks it down to glucose, you get a spike of insulin, you get a spike of dopamine, you become addicted. Actually, eating small portions of food every time is the reason why you get addicted to foods. You train your body to burn fat, it burns fat. You train your body to eat carbohydrates every after 2 hours, it becomes dependent on the carbohydrates. Now you suffer. And then I ask you, what is the major reason why you're eating carbohydrates? You tell me it's because of energy. And then I tell you fats have double the energy that carbohydrates can actually give you. And then you're like, but fats will clog my arteries. I'm like, I'm not talking about that. And again, dietary fats do not clog arteries. What clogs arteries is the fats, the triglycerides that you're actually getting from consuming fructose, which is a fruit sugar, a honey sugar, a sugarcane sugar, a sugar that is coming in with the processed foods. So you convert carbohydrates to fats. But human beings don't have enzymes that will convert fats back to carbohydrates. However, on a fat molecule, if you've watched my video when I talked about metabolism, there's a place I talked about fat metabolism and told you we have a head that is glycerol attached to the 3 chains, the fatty acid chain. So this glycerol can be converted to glucose. Remember this, that when you're trying to convert fats to glucose, you see, it's only one way. You convert glucose to fats. But you can convert this glycerol, the head of the fat, to glucose, but that's only 5% of the energy that you're going to get. 5%. So you can convert only 5% of fats into glucose. You see that? So it's very hard for you to convert fat back to glucose unless you go the longer route where you chop off the head of the fats, which is the glycerol, take it into the cycle that has to recycle it, glycerol to glucose and then to pyruvate and then into the tricyclic carboxylic acid cycle to metabolize it, to go through the other steps to produce ATP for energy. Understand that you can convert glucose to fat, keep on adding body weight, but it's very hard for you to convert the fat back to glucose unless 5% of the fat is actually converted to glucose. Once you catch that, you're good to go. And the reason is human beings don't have enzymes that can actually bring back fat to glucose. You'll have to take it through the longer route, and that route is very expensive to the body. By the way, the body has to pay a price to burn fat for energy. The free fatty acids to give you ketones. The body has to take a lot of. It's a resourceful process, very expensive and non-economical to the body. That's why most of you prefer glucose, because you eat carbohydrates and bam, you've chopped it down into glucose, you absorb it, energy goes up, you're good to go. So it's a quick fix for you. That's why you're addicted to it. That's the only reason why your doctor is telling you to eat carbohydrates all the time. And then, myth number 2, that the brain relies only on glucose. So they will tell you this, if you don't eat carbohydrates, your brain will not get glucose. Whoa, a lie. The brain loves ketone bodies. The only reason why the brain prefers carbohydrates or glucose as energy is because you bring in 90% of your plate as carbohydrates, as glucose. So therefore, how can you expect the body to use any other source of energy when we have a quick fix here in form of glucose? And look at your plate. From morning to evening, all 90% is carbohydrates. In the morning, tea that has milk is a carbohydrate. That tea has sugar is fructose and glucose. All of them are sugars. You eat with mandazis or bread, all that is glucose. You eat with maybe 2 smokies or 1 egg. At least you've tried on the egg, but the smokies processed red meat, chemicals. At tea break 10, the government brings you tea plus bread, another glucose and another fructose. At 1, you're eating rice and beans. Beans 65% carbohydrates, rice actually 98% carbohydrate. You brought in sugar. Yes, milk is a carbohydrate. When you boil milk, you've actually wasted the protein. You've destroyed the enzyme and the bacteria. It becomes lactose. That is a carbohydrate. So when you take your milk tea, you're actually taking in a carbohydrate. And then you add in sugar, waste of your space. So at lunch, you've eaten that. At 3, you're taking another tea or some porridge. As you move home, you're taking some sweets on the road because you don't want to just get caught up in the traffic jam, and now you're taking the sweets. You pass by KFC and you take your chicken which has been deep fried in seed oils, or the chips, the French fries, plus the fructose in terms of tomato paste, plus the soda, Coca-Cola, all carbohydrates. And then you go home, you eat another ugali, bigger ugali, plus rice, plus vegetables, plus 2 pieces of meat, 90% carbohydrates. How do you expect to be better? And that is repeated every day. You even become that. So the only reason why your brain appreciates glucose as the energy source is because 1, 90% of your plate is carbohydrate. Therefore, number 2, You became an addict of carbohydrates, and your body does not want to spend energy to burn fat when it can actually get it from carbohydrates. It's easier that way. And number 3, you produced a lot of dopamine, the hits that got you addicted, and now you cannot go back on carbohydrates. Okay? Myth number 3, that you know what? You don't have to care about anything. Simply eat everything, but in moderation. The body does not understand moderation. The body knows you brought in carbohydrates, it breaks it down to glucose, you get a spike of insulin, you get a spike of dopamine, you become addicted. Actually, eating small portions of food every time is the reason why you get addicted to foods. I prefer you sit down once and eat a fatty meal, period. Until you get another meal, which comes in 6 to 8 hours after the first meal. No more eating, no more snacking. This nonsense of eating small meals a day, every after 2 hours, is going to send you into your early grave. And that is a marketer. He's trying to find customers. So understand that. He'll put you on medication after medication. Number 2, there's no way your doctor can tell you not to eat every time when he himself is eating every time. There was a story from my client, again, who told me that they went to the doctor when they were fasting. They were doing a 72-hour fast. And I hope tomorrow they can actually come in and share this story. So they went to a doctor. They were doing a 72-hour fast. The doctor decides to run tests on them without asking anything about their life. And then the doctor finds a lot of ketones in urine. And then the doctor is shocked. Why are you having ketones in urine? This must be diabetic ketoacidosis. You should not ever have ketones in urine. And then the sugars were around 3.2 or so. And the doctor is like, you're going into hypo. What is happening to you? Blah, 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 blah. And then the lady says, oh, you know what? I'm fasting. The doctor is like, you're fasting. You will die. You are diabetic already. Why are you fasting? You will die. Look at your blood sugars at 3.2. You actually need soda. And the doctor is in his office with a whole thermos of tea that has milk and sugar. Offers this lady milk, tea, and sugar, and offers this lady chapati and mandazi. You need to boost your blood sugars. Stop listening to that guy. That internet doctor is going to mess you up. I am telling you. Believe me, you will come here, you'll find here. Sometimes your doctors are just crazy. How they pull the emotional move. Eh? You've been listening to this guy. Look at now, your blood sugars are at 3.7. That is, you're going into hypo. Do you know managing hypo is very dangerous than managing hyper? Doctor, but you've been managing hyper for the last 10 years. Today, I'm only having 1 day to go into hypo. Why are you so jittery? Why are you emotional, doctor? It's me, it's not you. So if we die, we die, right? The doctors become so emotional. They even tell you, now, okay, you choose the doctor you want to listen to. Don't consult me anymore. This is a guy who went to school. He was trained to deal with a rowdy patient. Leave alone you who is just asking questions. He was trained through psychology to deal with a rowdy patient, a psychotic client. But is here getting angry just because you told him, doctor, this is not DKA, this is ketosis. This is just ketosis. So I expect ketones in urine because I'm burning fat to produce ketone bodies. So this is not DKA, this is ketosis. Little did the doctor know that drugs for diabetes were withdrawn long time ago. So some of you doctors have to be very careful, because when your patient is asking questions, at this moment in time, in this era, your answers should be very, very, very careful. You should be very careful when answering those questions, because you don't know what this patient has in their heads. They are so educated now, they're not as blind as you think they are just because you went to a medical school. Now, they can ask you those questions and expect you to answer. And they can challenge you. That's the most important part. They can challenge you. Now you feel so angry about being challenged by a patient. Imagine. Daktari amekasirika juu ya patient. Yakata. Tawe. Okay? So the body does not understand the concepts of small meals. That is addiction, food addiction. The body understands compound interest. Kidogo kidogo hujaza kibaba. You take in the fructose today, you get a fatty liver. You get the triglycerides, they accumulate in the liver slowly and carefully. You take in the glucose every time, you accumulate the fats all the through, and now you're unable to lose weight. Now insulin resistance is coming in. Now more diabetes. And look at how the system is designed. We know that sugars are actually the cause of more conditions. You ask yourself, if I don't eat sugar or carbohydrates, what condition am I going to suffer from? That's the basic question that you should be asking yourself. That if I never eat sugars or carbohydrates, what is the deficiency condition for carbohydrates? I think I'll sit down and just wait for you to tell me. What is the deficiency condition for carbohydrates? In simpler terms, if you don't eat ugali, rice, wheat, and the sugar, table sugar, what do you think will happen to you? What do you think will be the disease that you'll suffer from? Time to ask daktari is maswali. Daktari, if I don't eat a carbohydrate, what is the condition that I will suffer from? Weight loss is not a medical condition. Low energy is not a deficiency condition. I want you to tell me a disease. Like if I eat carbohydrates in excess, I'll end up having diabetes. So you tell me, if I don't eat carbohydrates, what do you think I'll suffer from? I want to open your head so that when you go to that consultation room, chest up, neck straight, bold, broad shoulders, questions after questions. The way you guys come to my office and challenge me with my own videos, I want you to take the same energy to consultation rooms everywhere. Not only in house offices. Hii nguvu peleka every consultation room. Somebody saying anemia. How do you get anemia from carbohydrates? How does chapati heal anemia? How? If any case, if you eat chapati, you'll end up having a messed up gut. You will not absorb iron. That is anemia. So actually, eating chapati will give you problems. Low energy. Peter, low energy is not a medical condition. And there is no energy in carbohydrates that supersedes energy in fats. When you don't eat carbohydrates, you simply turn to proteins and fats to burn them to get ketones. They are super energies. 1 gram of carbohydrate gives you 4 calories of energy. 1 gram of burning fat gives you 9 calories. Therefore, what low energy are you talking about? What energy are you talking about? At zero carbohydrates, high immunity from all diseases. Thank you very much, Kibuntu. Now listen, there is no health condition that you suffer from by just not eating carbohydrates. So why are you eating them? Beriberi is a vitamin B1 condition. Vitamins. That's not a carbohydrate. So when you don't eat carbohydrates, there is no deficiency condition. So put that in your head and walk straight and ask those questions. But yes, somebody saying El Chapo. Yes, El Chapo decided to give you 1 million chapatis so that you keep on being sick, so that the Shah and the She and the Sheaf and whatever it is, they will rip hard from your chapati addiction. You think they're stupid? They will buy matatus and then open petrol stations to control what do you call it? Transport. They will feed you with the wrong foods to control the healthcare institutions. You think they're stupid? They know what they're doing. The system has messed you up by telling you eat and go and exercise. Is a lie. Exercise plays 15% of roles, and exercise, no amount of exercise can outdo a good diet. Oh, you can train, go to the hills and come back. You can run the whole year. But no exercise will outdo clean diets. Given that exercise plays 10 to 15% of roles in healthcare, and diets and fasting plays 80 to 85% of roles, choose you. You can live a full life without having to exercise, but eating just clean and fasting. But you eat the bad foods, never fast, and go ahead and run. And you tell me, why are those people, a lot of people in the gym, running on treadmills, jumping and singing and making loud noise? Why are they still having pot belly 6 months down the line? Because they don't understand the basics. Understand the basics, you keep moving. So I was telling you this. We all know that sugars are the basis of all conditions that we are suffering from. Basically, 90% of the conditions that we are suffering from are sugar problems. However, we will not tell you to drop the sugar because we know if we tell you that, you will not come back to us. So we will encourage you to continue eating sugars. Only change the colors of sugars from white to brown, or from synthetic to natural. The same thing, but different forms. Okay? And now, once we tell you that, we know we have you here for a lifetime. And then we'll give you medication to mask the symptoms of sugar problems, not to remove the sugar, because the sugar is still there. So we'll give you sugars and then mask the symptoms. Visualize this. When you have malaria, you have joint pains and headaches. So when you come and I diagnose you of malaria, should I give you paracetamol for the headache, or should I give you antimalarials to clear the malaria, and then the symptom of malaria, which is a headache and joint pains, disappear? Which one would you prefer? Give you paracetamol and allow the malaria to establish itself, or give you AL to clear the malaria and the headache disappears? Which one do you prefer? Would you prefer me managing your symptoms and allowing the disease to establish itself, or would you prefer me destroying the disease? And the only way to destroy diabetes, hypertension, kidney failure, heart attacks, strokes, and early stages of cancer is by doing away with what actually brought in the problem. The problem is the diet. Change the diet, the disease disappears, the symptoms disappear. But the system tells you eat the same diets. As you eat the same diets, I will give you a medication to mask the symptoms, but I will let the disease establish itself. No wonder you're on high doses of insulin, you're on high doses of losartan H, but you're still having hypertension 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line. You're still having diabetes. If any case, you are now getting into complications of diabetes. You're now losing your eyesight, but you're still on medication. And you go to a doctor and he tells you, we now have to peel your eye. Oh, you now have to drop salt because your kidneys are failing. But kidney failure is actually a complication of diabetes. But I'm on drugs for diabetes. So then how am I ending up with why am I ending up with the complication of diabetes? Question they will never answer. A stroke is a complication of diabetes, atherosclerosis. And now they simply shift, keep eating the sugars, but drop the fats. But fats are not the problem. They're coming in to fix sugar problems. Salt is not the problem. Sugar is the problem. That's why you have excess salt in the system, because you cannot get it out because the kidneys are failing. So they prefer to mask the symptoms and allow the disease to establish, because through establishment of the disease, they will make more money. So they also prefer to treat the symptoms. For example, when you have diabetes, which is a sugar problem or a kitchen problem, you will end up having a complication of a kidney disease. They will choose to treat the kidney disease as a symptom on its own. There are guidelines for kidney disease and management of kidney disease, plus drugs and surgeries for kidney transplant. They've managed one symptom. That is not enough. When you have a failing kidney, you have anemia. We will help to manage anemia by giving you ranferon. They will ignore that. They will go ahead and manage stroke. And there are guidelines for managing stroke and medication for a stroke. They will manage the stroke. They will manage a heart attack differently. They will manage hypertension differently. And all these are basically symptoms of a messed up diet. Why don't we change the diet? And as we mask the symptoms temporarily, why don't we just tell these people the truth? That the truth is actually in the diets. So why do we allow these people to still have the diabetes and we mask the symptoms, and then we go ahead and treat every complication of diabetes as an individual thing? We treat the symptoms as an individual thing. Do you see how we expand the market for the pharmaceutical companies? Because if you have diabetes, you'll end up having eye problems. Now we have eye supplements and surgeries for the eye. But the diabetes is not going away. It's still there because we are masking the symptoms. If you have diabetes, you end up having hypertension. We have drugs for hypertension and techniques to manage hypertension. And now we tell you to drop salt when the problem is here at the diabetic level. When you have diabetes, you have nerve problems. Instead of me telling you, hey, we need to deal with the diabetes and nerve problems disappear, I rather go ahead and mask the symptoms for diabetes using metformin, and I give you neurobion forte to mask the symptoms of diabetes, the complication of diabetes. You have a kidney failure, I recommend, you know what, you need to go for a dialysis session. You're doing the dialysis session, but you're still diabetic, even on insulin therapy, and with the same diets. And even in that hospital, as you're doing a kidney transplant or as you're doing the dialysis, you're being served with brown bread and milk, being told, you know what, dialysis is a very strong process and it can actually take you into hypo. So therefore, take this as you inject yourself with insulin. Aye. You might never understand my pain until you nurse somebody who has these conditions. That's when you realize, and until you watch my videos without emotions, that's when you'll see that I'm actually making sense. Wait until you nurse somebody who has a chronic condition and they drain your pocket. You guys will sell the land, you will sell that bull, you will drain your accounts, the savings and all that. You will sell all the goods and everything will come at standstill. Even your children will not go to school because your mother is diabetic and they need to chop off her leg. And you see, chopping off her leg is not fixing diabetes. And as they do that, you will still believe them because they sold you the fear, and you believed the fear and you became part of that fear. And you've been doing the same things over and over. There is no change, but you don't see the need to do things differently. You cannot do these things the same way and expect different results. My people,